Hello my fellow aviators, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of my G1000 tutorial, and we're going to be focusing over on the MFD, the multifunctional display, which is typically the right screen in a cockpit. So here you can see the screen, and up here on the left you got your volume knob for your comms. Here you've got NAV1, NAV2, this is your standby frequency, this is your active frequency, and if you click this button here you can see you can swap the standby with the active frequency. If you want to change frequencies, twist the big knob for the big number, twist the little knob for the little number, so you can tune in your ILS or your VOR or whatever it is that you're tuning in. This over here is your heading bug. So there is a heading bug over on the PFD, and if you are running autopilot in heading mode, then you are going to want to twist this knob to alter your course. So speaking of autopilot, this button here is the autopilot on and off. This is to put autopilot in heading mode. This is to capture a specific altitude. So if you wanted to cruise at whatever altitude you're at right now, if you touch this button, the plane will level out at that altitude. The nav button here, instead of being in heading mode, so if you have a flight plan or waypoints programmed in, which we'll get to a little later in this video, and you put autopilot in navigation mode, it will simply follow whatever plan is loaded in your flight plan. This is the approach mode button. So typically this is used when you are doing an instrument approach and you're hoping to capture the glide slope on an ILS. You're going to put this in approach mode, and then when you do that, over in the PFD here you're going to see that the letters GS, and they'll typically be in white, and that means that the glide slope is armed. And then when you capture the glide slope, or when the autopilot captures the glide slope, and you'll be able to see that typically here with some vertical guidance, the GS that is in white will change to green, and that means that the autopilot has captured the glide slope. Alright, what's next? Let's recenter that up. So going back here, we have two more buttons, or a couple more buttons: vertical speed and flight level change. So typically when I'm in the simulator or the real aircraft, if I want to descend at say 500 feet a minute or 700 feet a minute, or whatever the descent rate is that I desire, I'm going to click vertical speed, and then I'm going to put nose down. I'll repeatedly click this until over in the PFD I can see the descent rate that matches whatever I want. Now when I'm on climb out, the danger of using vertical speed on climb out is the autopilot is going to try to fly whatever vertical speed in feet per minute that you program into it. But you might be in a situation due to density, altitude, or what have you, when your aircraft simply cannot maintain that particular rate of climb. And so this is where flight level change comes into play. When you hit flight level change up and down, you can then program in to the autopilot the speed with which you would like to climb. So for example, if I want to climb out at 85 knots, I'm going to hit flight level change. I'm going to click nose up until over in the PFD, which would be over here, you're going to see it right around here. You're going to see whatever that speed is, and then you'll notice that on your airspeed indicator the aircraft maintains that particular speed, and that will translate into whatever feet per minute the aircraft is capable of given the weather conditions that you have on that particular day. Alright, so that's the left pane other than this last knob here, and this is the knob where you're going to set in whatever desired altitude that you want to cruise at. So if I want to cruise at 7,500, I'm going to twist the big knob till I get 7,000 and the little knob until I get 500, and where you're going to see that is right over here on the PFD. You can see it's currently set at 7,500, and if I twist this knob, that number goes up and down. Alright, so now let's dive into, there's so much functionality in this that is absolutely awesome. So this is your engine and instruments, RPM, fuel flow, oil pressure, oil temperature, EGT, vacuum pressure, fuel quantity, engine hours, and then your electrical. You got your main bus, you've got your voltage on the main bus, battery, and your amps. And if you click on the engine mode, you can get into access this button here called lean. So if you're leaning the aircraft out, there is a lean assistant for you to be able to do that. And these numbers here, basically what you're looking for typically is a certain amount that is going to be lean of peak. So when it comes to leaning an engine, there's really a number of ways to do it. You can use the lean assist, or if you know your aircraft well, you can just lean to whatever gallons per hour you know. Like in a Cessna 172, typically it's going to run about 8.5 gallons per hour. Or you can lean with your ear, and so you'd pull back on the mixture lever until the engine started to run rough, and then you'd slightly advance the mixture lever so that you are enriching it just a little bit, and that is how you're going to lean out your engine. So here we've got the system button, and again it's just showing us fuel calculations, how much fuel we've used, how much fuel we have remaining based upon our current gallons per hour, the amount that's in our tanks, and our electrical information. So let's go and hit the back button. So now we've got map options. So in map options, if you hit the soft key, first of all, you can turn traffic on or off. In the real aircraft, I always like to have traffic showing because it's a way of keeping safe. Same here, terrain. You can put terrain in relative mode, you can turn it off, or you can put it in topo mode. So if you're in relative mode, and the plane right now is sitting on the tarmac, so this isn't working, but basically this is going to be a mode where you're able to see your vertical separation from the ground that is beneath you, which is obviously incredibly beneficial from a safety perspective, because if you see yellow or red, you need to be very, very careful. Yellow, you're getting awfully close, and red, you're going to have a terrain strike. So in the real aircraft, I definitely like to make use of that, especially if I'm flying in IMC. Here you've got your next rad, which is your radar on and off, and then here you've got your legend, which really doesn't appear to do very much in the Microsoft Flight Simulator version of the G1000. Up here along the middle, you've got your ground speed, your direct track, your landing time, and your estimated time on route, typically to your next waypoint. So if you have multiple waypoints in your flight plan, this number here is typically going to be to the next waypoint. Now, if you want to make changes to these, you can hit the menu button and go over here into map settings, and then you can use your FMS big knob to scroll down and choose whatever it is that you want to change. And for example, track up, if you wanted to change that to north up or heading up, you would then twist the little knob. If you wanted heading up, you could choose enter. I particularly like track up, so I'm going to choose enter, and that's going to go put the enter mode as selected, and then I can just hit clear to get rid of the menu icon. So the menu button is kind of a multifunction button. It does a lot of different things depending upon what screen you are at. Now over here you've got COM1 and COM2. Same information is being displayed over on the PFD function, operated in the same way as I showed you with these knobs over here. Big knob for the big number, little knob for the little number. This is the standby frequency in COM1 and COM2. This is the active frequency in COM1 and COM2. You can see right now, because this is highlighted in turquoise, that if I hit this button, when those frequencies are both the same, so that's a bad example. There we go. If I hit this button, that's the one that's going to go back and forth. If you push this knob here, you go down to COM2. Now that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to hear COM1 or COM2 in your ear, because you are going to need to select in the audio panel which COM you want to listen to and which COM you want to talk on. Down below this, you've got your course and your barometric adjustment. So when you go and get an ATIS, or you're passed from one air traffic control, one approach to another, they're typically going to give you a new altimeter setting. Standard is 29.92, but obviously it could be any other number that they give you. And so over on the PFD or here on the MFD, if you twist this knob, it's going to make that adjustment, and it's going to adjust this number right over here. Okay. So now course is if you are in on the PFD, if you were in non-GPS, if you're in a VOR mode and you want to adjust your course, this would be the knob that you would twist to do that. There's the exact same knob over on the PFD, so more than likely you're going to be using the knob on the PFD. This is your range to zoom in and out, and then these here, we're going to dive into these buttons now because there's a whole lot of functionality that's happening here. So when it comes to programming a flight plan, so if you haven't already pre-programmed it before you get into the aircraft and you decide you want to program it once you get into the aircraft, if you touch the little knob here, you can now just start spinning it. Actually, I've got to twist big knob down once to get to here, and now I can start spinning it. So okay, let's say the Gowan Airport BOI. Okay, so we've got the airport that we want. We're going to hit enter. Do we want to choose a runway? We don't have to worry about that if we don't want to, but of course we could by twisting the little knob. Let's say we're going to take off on 10 right. And let's say that now we'll get rid of that little box, and now we're going to twist the big knob down to our destination, and we'll make it Salt Lake City. So okay, twist big knob to advance over to the next character. So S, I'm going from memory here, I'm pretty sure it's SLC. There we go, Salt Lake City, and now choose enter. And I won't bother choosing a runway just for at this moment in time. So now, if you look at your flight plan, now I'm not sitting at the Boise airport, so let's zoom out a little bit. I guess I should have made that from the airport that I'm sitting at. And for whatever reason, that flight plan is not showing, which is bizarre. But normally what you're going to do now is on your MFD here, you're going to see a pink arrow or pink line that's going from Gowan to Salt Lake City. Alright, so there's actually the pink line. I was just zoomed in too much, and because I have track up and we're not actually flying anywhere, the map is inverted. It would actually be Boise if we had north up. So here, let's make this just a little, because we're sitting on the ground. Let's go to map settings and let's choose north up, and that would orient the map in a way that would seem a little bit more familiar to me. And so now you can see here we are at Boise, and there's Salt Lake Center, or Salt Lake City down there. And you can also see all the red because we're sitting on the ground, and like I said to you earlier, you know, that would be where you'd have a terrain strike. So you can see here that we've got a whole lot of detail on the map, and you've got a detail soft key. So if you wanted to decrease the level of detail, you are able to do that with the detail button. I typically do like it on all because most times I'm going to be zoomed in fairly close. It's a way I like this particular ring here. When I'm flying, it's usually going to be set at 7.5 miles, and that way I know any traffic that is within that ring is within 7.5 miles of me, and so I need to start paying more attention to them. So the charts functionality, you can see here you've got charts built right into the MFD, and if you choose this, you can alter the airport that you're at. So that's showing us the airport diagram for the Caldwell Airport, because the aircraft right now is sitting on the ground at the Caldwell Airport. Something that you can do, which is pretty cool, if you go highlight whatever frequency it is for that airport, and then you hit enter. Actually, does it work on this? Because I know this works in the real aircraft. There we go. It put 119.6 in the standby frequency of COM2, and now if we hit the AWOS and we hit enter again, it changes it. So basically it's going to put whatever frequency is here into the standby frequency of whatever is highlighted. So if we go ahead and push this, now you can see 124.85. If I want to load up the departure frequency, if I didn't want to have to twist that in with the FMS knob, all I have to do is highlight it and hit enter, and 119.6 is now in the standby frequency of COM1. So that's pretty cool. So you've got info in the charts. There's actually quite a bit of information. So chart options, you've got your header, you've got your plan view, you've got your profile view. This is not an approach chart, so it doesn't really have a really great profile view. You've got your minimums, and then fit width, I assume, just fits the chart back onto the screen that is available to you. So there's a whole lot of information there. There's departure procedures, of which there isn't any for that particular airport. There's a star, of which there isn't any for that particular airport, but there are arrival procedures for that particular airport. So again, you can pull up these charts and then you can scroll down to the approach and you can choose whatever you approach. I know this airport well, and there's only 2 approaches, so you can choose whatever chart that you would like to see. So if you don't have a subscription to Navigraph or what have you, and you want to have these charts, you can get this right out of... I actually didn't even know this before I was recording the video, because I do have a Navigraph subscription, and I typically am using Navigraph's charts, but nonetheless the information is right here in your MFD, which is pretty darn cool. Alright, and then WX we've got our weather right there. You can see our METAR, and then you've got a little, I don't know if you can scroll. It doesn't appear to me that you can scroll up and down on that, but nonetheless, there's a fair amount of information there for you. So now, once you have a flight plan programmed in, there's a number of other really cool things that you might want to do. So let's say, for example, that I'm going to just pause the video. I'm going to program in a couple of waypoints. Actually, no, here, we'll do it this way. So let's say that you're talking to ATC, and they have told you that into Salt Lake City that you can expect a certain approach. They haven't cleared you for the approach yet, but they've told you to expect that particular approach. So by hitting proc or procedure, I'm able to select my approach or my arrival or my departure. In this case, we're going to choose approach. I'm going to hit enter, and let's just say they have told me to expect the ILS 34 right. Okay, cool, that's the one we want. And they have told me to expect it via the plague, however you say that, initial approach fix. So I'm going to select that. And then if you know the minimums, you would turn this knob here to get to borrow, and then you turn whatever your minimums are in. I'm not going to bother looking up those minimums, but we'll just say that the minimums are 730 feet. And now you can say, okay, here's all of the waypoints on that particular approach plate. And because I've been told to expect it, but I'm not cleared for it, I only want to load it. I don't want to activate it. So I'm going to load that. Not approved for GPS guidance for monitoring, and only load approach. Yes, I want to go ahead and load that particular approach. So now you can see I've got the approach that's loaded into my flight plan, and the autopilot, as long as it is in navigation mode, it is going to fly this particular approach. Now what you might have happen is that ATC, you might be on your way to the initial approach fix of plague, and then ATC says, hey, you are now cleared for the ILS blah blah blah, proceed direct algae. Well, what do you do in that particular situation? Well, here you push this knob, and you'll see that plague is highlighted. Now you twist this knob until it is on the waypoint that you have been cleared to, and then you can hit direct, and you'll notice that that particular waypoint there is the same one as there, and then you can hit enter, and then you can hit activate. And so now the navigation system is going to fly you direct to this approach, and then it's going to continue flying the rest of the approach as it has been programmed into the autopilot. Which brings me to a button that I did not cover over here called the vertical navigation button, VNAV or VNV, whatever you would like to say. This is a very cool button. So what this does, let's say that in this scenario I'm cruising at 17,000 feet, which of course in a Cessna 172 you wouldn't be doing, but that's beside the point. And I need to go down the final approach fix at 6,100 feet. So I want the computer to calculate my top of descent so that at a 3-degree glide slope, it brings me down to all of these waypoints and puts me at the exact right altitude without me having to do anything. So what you would need to do that, so let's say, 6,100 feet is the final approach fix. We'll just assume that for the purposes of this that our runway elevation is, oh, I don't know, 4,000 feet. So we would twist our FMS knob. Oops. So first of all, we'd have to get, we twist our altitude knob down to, say, 4,000 feet. So that now is going to be over here. You can see 4,000 feet on the PFD. Then when I hit vertical nav, and I'm not flying, so it's not going to work, but what you would see right over here is the words VPath, and they would be in white. And what that means is the vertical path system is armed. And then what you would see is over here in your top of descent, and this will show up on the map as well, but it's going to give you a figure here in time. It could be 7 minutes, 9 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever it is. What that's telling you is that is the amount of time remaining until you have reached the top of descent. And what will happen at that point in time is that VPath will go from being white letters over on your PFD over to green letters, and that means it is armed, and you're going to see the aircraft start to descend. And the beautiful thing about that is it's not going to bust or go below any of the altitudes that are on the waypoints of the approach plate that ATC has just cleared you for. So it's a really, really cool thing to use. Now, in the real world, it doesn't always work. Doesn't always work. You wouldn't always use it because ATC may be clearing you descents at their discretion, in which case you're going to simply change your altitude, fly down to whatever altitude they have cleared you down to. You're going to wait at that altitude till they clear you to the next altitude, and that might happen before they clear you for the actual approach. Now, once they've cleared you for the approach, of course, then you're able to fly all of the published altitudes that are on the plate without prior approval from them, because the very nature of them clearing you for that approach means that you're okay to go and descend at whatever those altitudes are that are on the approach plate. But in the situation where they don't do that, and you have the opportunity to use vertical nav or VNAV, I would highly encourage that you make use of it. Again, you just twist in the lowest altitude that you want to get to, and you arm VNAV. When it gets to your top of descent, it will start to descend for you, and it actually makes it pretty painless. Alright, so now let's talk about what happens if the approach they told you to expect is not the approach that they end up assigning you. What do you do then? Well, the quick and easy way to do that is you go back to proc, and you're going to select, you're just going to reload another approach. So let's say that they have cleared you for instead the ILS 3 left. You're going to choose that, and they've told you that you're going to come in from via the FFU initial approach fix. You're going to choose that, and obviously at that point in time they're going to tell you that you're cleared for that approach, so you're just going to go ahead and activate that. A couple of other things: if you have an approach loaded and it's not activated yet, you would choose proc like I did, and you would scroll down, and you would then choose activate approach, and whatever approach was loaded will now become active, and the autopilot, as long as you are in nav mode, will begin to fly that particular approach. If, on the other hand, you're in a situation, and this happens a lot in the real world, where they're giving you vectors to final. So basically all that means is they're going to give you headings. Warning, lost internet. No, that's okay. We'll just leave that there. ATC is going to give you headings for you to fly until such time as they might say, report when established or what have you. So let's say that they were going to give you vectors. So you would activate vectors to final by choosing enter, and then you're going to put autopilot in heading mode, and you're going to twist the heading knob to whatever heading ATC gives you, and they're typically going to give you enough turns until such time as your intercept angle is 30 degrees or less. So I think I might have just killed the battery on the plane because I didn't have the engine running. Let me see if I can turn it back on. Alright, so apparently you can kill a battery in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I've reloaded the situation, and now we've got the engine running to make sure that we don't run out of battery. So there is our flight plan. As I mentioned to you previously, If you ever need to change your approach, go ahead and simply select proc and pick whatever approach. If you've got one loaded already, it really doesn't matter. You can go ahead and change it to whatever other approach that you would like. And we will do that here. And we'll go ahead and activate it. Alright, so once you've got approach loaded, really we're just about done the video. You've got this thing here called activate leg, and I don't usually use this hardly at all. So the use case would be if you want to activate a certain leg, say from this waypoint to this waypoint, you would highlight the waypoint you want to go to, and then you would activate leg. And the reason I don't really use this in the real world is usually I might, if ATC clears me to fly direct to plage, I might not be at this waypoint yet, and so I don't really want to activate the waypoint of from here to here. I just want to go directly to here, and as I mentioned earlier in this particular video, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go direct, enter, enter, and now the aircraft, you can see, is going to fly direct to that particular waypoint. So if you go back to the menu button, you can create a hold at a waypoint. This is something that stumps a lot of people, and I'm not really going to cover holds at length in this particular video, but know that you can do it, and you can choose whatever course you would like, inbound or outbound, leg time, 1 minute, turn direction, right, whatever that is, and then you can go ahead and load the hold, and you'll see now it's placed it in there. So if ATC tells you to hold at whatever, you would add that hold in. Now if they decide later on, okay, well, hey, I don't want you to hold there anymore, and you want to get rid of it, simply highlight it, hit clear, and you can remove that hold. This is one of the things too, by the way, when I am loading an approach, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it here to demonstrate. I might have to just talk through it. But if we go ahead and load, like, let's see if it asks us. Oftentimes it will say, do you want to fly? No, it's not going to do it on this particular hold because there's no course reversal. But it'll say, do you want to fly the course reversal at blah, 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 blah. I will typically say yes, even if I'm hoping to not fly the course reversal. And the reason for that is the way that I showed you to remove that hold. It's much easier to remove a hold than it is to add a hold, and that's really what a course reversal is. If you want to delete your flight plan, you can scroll down and do that. If you want to invert your flight plan, typically, and the use case for this is I'm at my destination now, I want to go back to wherever I took off from in the first place, you can go ahead and invert and remove the flight plan by selecting that and choosing OK, so you can see it's done that. And then finally, you can also, if there was an approach in there, which there no longer is because I reversed the flight plan, you could use that to remove the approach. But that's, again, not the way that I would typically remove an approach in my case, so let's just quickly load up another one. We'll say that we'll just go ahead and load it. If I wanted to remove an approach, what I normally do is I'm just going to highlight the approach like this, hit the clear button. Do you want to remove this approach from your flight plan? Yes, I do. Alright, so that covers the vast majority of what you're going to use the MFD for in Microsoft Flight Sim. Obviously, in the real world aircraft, there is some additional functionality, but it's not going to be functionality that you're going to use a ton. If you use what I showed you in this video, you're probably about 90 to 95% of the way there. So if you've enjoyed this video, I would be really grateful if you would give it a smash that like button and go ahead and leave a comment. If you have questions or I've made a mistake of some kind, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. And if this is your first time watching a Fly with Trent video and you'd like to see more videos like this, obviously browse the channel and consider becoming a subscriber in one of two ways. One, you can subscribe here on YouTube by clicking subscribe and clicking the little bell so you get notifications from YouTube when a new video is published. Or if you would like to get access to my free email course on how to choose the very best flight school for you and what to look out for and what the gotchas are, head on over to the flywithtrent.com website, become an email subscriber, and you will receive notifications of new videos when I publish them, as well as you will be granted instant access to the email course that I mentioned. Thank you all very much for coming and joining me on this video today. I look forward to having you back for another one soon. Take care. Bye-bye.